Hi everyone, my name is Brenda Strong. I'm a 31-year-old graphic designer working from the comfort of my small home studio in Elizabeth. Today, I want to tell you a story about how my life, which seemed so perfect, suddenly fell apart. Don't worry though, I came out stronger in the end. It all started one morning when my husband, Scott, casually said, "Honey, your mom's coming over for coffee." No heads up, no thought about my busy schedule or the deadlines I had to meet. This was the third time that week she'd popped by unannounced. I muttered something under my breath, trying not to let my irritation show, while staring at the half-finished designs scattered across my desk. Scott, a real estate agent who could close million-dollar deals without breaking a sweat, didn't seem to notice how his mother's constant interference was affecting me. When Scott and I got married 3 years ago, I thought I had it all: a loving husband, a successful design business, and a cozy home office. But there was one big problem. Maria, my mother-in-law, was a nightmare. One day, during one of her uninvited visits, I caught her rearranging my spice cabinet. "Did you touch my spices again?" I asked, trying to keep calm. "Oh, darling," she said in her overly sweet tone that grated on my nerves. "I'm just trying to help. You're always so busy with your little computer drawings." She didn't stop there. At a family dinner, she brought it up again. "So, Scott tells me you're working on a big project," she said, cutting her meat as if she were performing surgery. I was proud of my work and replied, "Yes, it's for a major tech company." But before I could say more, she interrupted, "Speaking of projects, Andrea's daughter is starting a design business. Maybe you could give her some tips." Things took a turn for the worse when I noticed something odd later that night. My laptop's portfolio tab was open. I never leave it open. "Babe, did someone use my computer today?" I asked Scott. "Mom needed to check her email," he said casually. The next morning, my sister Joyce stormed into my house, holding her phone. "Your designs are all over social media," she exclaimed. I grabbed her phone and saw what she meant. Andrea's daughter had posted designs identical to mine just hours before I was supposed to present them to a client. "This isn't a coincidence," Joyce said firmly. I was stunned. How could someone steal my work so blatantly? My mind raced as I tried to figure out what to do next. That experience was a turning point for me. It forced me to reevaluate my boundaries and stand up for myself, both personally and professionally. It wasn't easy, but in the end, I grew stronger and more confident in handling difficult situations. This chaos taught me to protect what I've worked so hard to build. "I've seen Maria sneaking around her office when you're not there," my sister Joyce told me one evening. That same night, my best friend Evelyn called with more troubling news. "Girl, you won't believe what I overheard at the bank," she said. "Maria's been asking about your business accounts." My stomach dropped. Things were starting to feel very wrong. The breaking point came when I walked into my office to find it completely turned upside down. My external hard drive was missing, and important files on my computer had been deleted. I was furious and panicked. When I told Scott about it, his response left me speechless. "Maybe you just misplaced things," he said casually. "You've been really stressed lately." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Are you seriously defending this?" I snapped. Before he could answer, his phone buzzed. It was Maria. "Coming, Mom," he said, grabbing his keys and leaving me alone in my chaotic office. My hands trembled as I looked around. This wasn't just about annoying visits or meddling with spice cabinets anymore. This was a full-on attack on my business, and Scott didn't seem to care. "This has to stop," I whispered to myself. I didn't know it then, but the worst was yet to come. The nightmare was just beginning. Joyce hugged me tightly later that evening. "You need to document everything," she said. "This isn't normal, Brenda." I nodded, staring at the screen in front of me. There they were, my stolen designs, plastered all over social media by Andrea's daughter. It was like they were mocking me. "I'm done playing nice," I said, determination setting in. Then came the day of Maria's surprise dinner party. It started with her usual dramatic flair, an unannounced visit. "I'm hosting Bridge Club here tonight," she declared as if it were her house. "Andrea and Cheryl are bringing their husbands. Don't embarrass Scott." I was already swamped with work rushing to complete my biggest project yet. My client needed the final designs by 9 p.m., and they had to be perfect. I muttered to myself as I darted back and forth between my desk and the kitchen, trying to juggle everything. Then it all fell apart. The smoke alarm blared as the roast I was preparing burned in the oven. Meanwhile, I opened my project folder only to find corrupted files where my finished designs should have been. My heart raced as panic set in. From the dining room, Maria's voice rang out like nails on a chalkboard. "Something smells burnt," she called, feigning concern. I clenched my fists, trying to stay calm. "Just a small setback," I yelled back, my voice shaking as I tried to salvage what was left of my project. This wasn't just a bad day. It felt like my life was spiraling out of control. Something had to change, and it had to change fast. I couldn't let Maria's games destroy everything I'd worked so hard to build. I tried to save what I could. Dinner was burning, and my file transfer kept failing. My heart sank as I noticed someone was accessing my cloud drive. Who could it be? Before I could figure it out, the doorbell rang again. Andrea and Cheryl arrived with their husbands, all smiles and politeness that felt more fake than real. "Still not ready?" Andrea smirked, her tone sharp. Cheryl leaned in, pretending to care. "Need any help, dear?" she asked sweetly, but her words felt like an insult. My phone buzzed. It was another message from my client. "Where are the designs?" they asked. "Just 20 more minutes," I whispered to myself, trying not to lose it. And then, everything fell apart. A sharp slap rang out in the kitchen, shocking me to my core. Maria had hit me. "20 minutes, she sneered. "My friends are waiting." The room spun as Andrea pulled out her phone, recording the chaos like it was entertainment. "Mom, calm down." Scott finally stepped in, but Maria wouldn't have it. "Don't you dare tell me to calm down," she shouted. Then, turning to me, she said, "You're ruining this family's reputation." Tears welled up in my eyes as I touched my stinging cheek. "She's just stressed," Scott whispered to me later, as if that excused her behavior. "You know how important these dinners are?" The final blow came when my phone buzzed again. It was my client. The contract was terminated. I couldn't hold back the tears anymore. Locking myself in my office, I tried to open my design folders, but everything was gone. Completely wiped out. Scott knocked softly on the door. "You should apologize to Mom," he said. "Apologize?" I whispered, anger and disbelief cutting through my pain. "Are you kidding me?" "She's crying downstairs," he continued, as if that was supposed to make me feel guilty. "Andrea and Cheryl are comforting her." My anger boiled over. Ignoring him, I reopened my laptop and my heart sank. My designs were already posted on Andrea's daughter's business page. She had stolen my work, and there was nothing I could do. Just then, Joyce burst into my office holding a small, worn book. "I found something," she said, breathless. "You need to see this." It was Maria's old diary, hidden among the mess she had created in my office. Joyce pointed to an entry from 6 years ago. My hands shook as I read it. Finally got rid of that gold digger. A few well-placed rumors, some financial sabotage, and she's out of the picture. No one ruins my son's future except who I choose. "This isn't just about tonight," Joyce whispered, her voice filled with anger. "She's done this before. And Scott? He's as much a victim as you are, but that doesn't excuse him." I stared at the diary, my mind racing. It all made sense now, but I wasn't sure what to do next. One thing was certain. I couldn't let Maria destroy my life any further. I stared at my reflection in the dark screen of my laptop, my cheek still stinging from the slap. "This ends now," I said softly but firmly. I had had enough of Maria's games, and it was time to take control. For the next week, I played the role of the broken and defeated wife. I let Maria think she had won, watching her smug expression as she basked in her supposed victory. She had no idea I was setting her up. During Wednesday dinner, I decided to bait her. "I think I need therapy," I said with a sniffle. "Maybe I'm just not good enough for this family." Maria's smile was as sweet as poison. "Oh, darling, we all have our limitations," she said, her voice dripping with fake kindness. Andrea and Cheryl exchanged smug glances, clearly enjoying my downfall. That night, I left my laptop open on purpose, displaying a folder labeled New Designs Confidential in bold, attention-grabbing text. What Maria didn't know was that I had installed hidden cameras in my office. Sure enough, the footage captured her sneaking into my office at midnight, copying files from my laptop. "Got you," I whispered as I reviewed the video the next morning. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Evelyn at the bank. "Maria tried to access your business accounts again. We flagged it," she wrote. Minutes later, I got another message from Joyce. "Found the connection. Maria owes money to Edward, the shark, Martinez. Big time." Later, I met Scott's sister Isabella at a quiet cafe. She looked nervous, but eventually spoke up. "There's something you should know about Mom," she said. "Remember Madison, the church treasurer who moved away? What about her?" I asked, curious. She didn't move. Madison found discrepancies in the church accounts. Mom made sure she was discredited, Isabella revealed. Everything was starting to make sense. Maria's manipulation wasn't new. She had done this before. The perfect moment came during a church fundraiser. Maria stood at the podium, soaking up attention. "Such generous donations," she said proudly. "Especially from our anonymous benefactor." "Funny you should mention that," I said, standing up. The room went silent. "The bank has some questions about those donations." Maria's face twitched. "This isn't the time," she said, her voice strained. "It's never the time, is it?" I shot back. Just like it wasn't the time when Madison found the missing money. The air was thick with tension. "How dare you?" Andrea snapped, rushing to defend Maria. "Show them the transfers, Maria," I challenged. "Show them where the money really went." Cheryl grabbed her purse, looking ready to flee. Maria lunged toward me, but Isabella stepped in between us. "Enough, Mom," Isabella said firmly, her voice steady. Maria froze, her mask of control slipping. For the first time, it felt like the truth was winning, and Maria's reign of manipulation was crumbling. "I found your gambling receipts," I said, holding up the evidence. Scott froze, his perfect image of a happy family shattering before my eyes. "Baby, she's lying," Maria cried out, turning to him with desperation. "Your wife is trying to destroy us." My phone buzzed and I glanced at the screen. A message popped up. "The startup using your stolen designs just got served a cease and desist order." Smiling, I turned to Maria. "Check your phone, Maria," I said calmly. "Andrea's daughter is looking for you." Maria's face went pale as she read the message. "You set me up," she hissed, her voice full of venom. "No," I replied firmly. "You did this to yourself. Every file you stole was watermarked. Every secret conversation was recorded. Every shady bank transfer was tracked." Isabella stepped forward and stood beside me. "The church board wants to see you, Mom," she said firmly. "Now." "Scott, do something." Maria screamed, panic evident in her voice. But Scott just stood there, frozen, as the truth about his mother finally sank in. For once, he couldn't deny what was happening. "Meeting someone later?" I asked, pretending to be innocent. "Maybe Edward Martinez?" At the mention of the loan shark's name, Maria's eyes widened in fear. Whispers rippled through the crowd, and the carefully crafted mask she wore began to crumble. "This isn't over," she hissed, grabbing her designer bag and trying to maintain her dignity. "Actually, it is," I said coolly. "The FBI is very interested in those offshore accounts you've been using." Maria stormed out, her world falling apart around her. As she left, I caught sight of Andrea and Cheryl trying to slip away unnoticed. "Don't forget your recordings," I called out after them. "The ones you edited to make me look crazy? I have the originals." Andrea and Cheryl froze in their tracks, their faces filled with guilt. Moments later, I watched as they were led out of the church hall in handcuffs. Justice at last. The room emptied, leaving Scott standing alone. "Brenda, he began, his voice shaky and uncertain. I raised my hand to stop him. "Save it," I said firmly. "The divorce papers are on your desk." 1 year later, I stood at the podium, accepting the award for Most Innovative Agency of 2023 at the Digital Design Awards. The applause filled the room, a symbol of how far I had come. My business was thriving, and my life was finally my own. As I stepped off the stage, my assistant leaned in and whispered, "Your security system detected movement at the back entrance." I nodded, a calm smile on my face. Whatever was coming, I was ready. I had rebuilt my life, and nothing would bring me down again. I glanced at the surveillance feed on my office screen. Maria, who once flaunted her designer outfits, now wore a worn waitress uniform. She was arguing with the security guard at the building entrance. "Ma'am, you're not on the list," the guard said firmly. "But that's my daughter-in-law," Maria pleaded. "Ex-daughter-in-law," I murmured to myself, watching her desperation play out on the screen. My phone buzzed with a text from Joyce. "Turn on Channel 8. I grabbed the remote and switched on the news. Breaking news flashed across the screen, showing Andrea and Cheryl being escorted from their homes in handcuffs. "The suspects are charged with multiple counts of fraud and conspiracy," the news anchor reported. Another message buzzed on my phone. This one was from Scott. "Can we talk? I've been in therapy. I understand everything now." I stared at the screen for a moment before deleting the message. It was too late for apologies. At the after-party for the awards ceremony, a young designer approached me. "Miss Strong," she asked nervously, "is it true about Maria Thompson's gambling?" "Old news," I replied, taking a sip of champagne. "Focus on your designs." Isabella joined me a few minutes later, looking elegant and confident in her new business attire. "Mom's working at Denny's now," she said casually. She tried getting help from her old church friends, but most of them are either in jail or pretending they never knew her. I smiled. "What about the loan sharks?" "They took everything," Isabella replied. "Even her precious china collection." My phone buzzed again, this time a message from Evelyn at the bank. "Maria tried to open a new account today. Denied. She's on every fraud watch list." Later that night, I was alone in my office when I opened an email from Scott's lawyer. "Final divorce settlement ready for signature." Without a second thought, I clicked approve. Just as I was getting ready to leave, my security system pinged again. Maria was sitting in a beat-up car outside the building. "Should we call the police?" my assistant asked. "No need," I replied. "She can't hurt me anymore." I gathered my awards and designs, turned off the lights, and walked out the front entrance. Maria's car was still parked outside, but I didn't even glance her way. She was part of my past, and I was done letting her control any part of my life. Some people might call it karma, but I call it justice. As I stepped into my car, my phone buzzed one last time, a notification that Maria's latest loan shark victim story had gone viral. I smiled, deleted it, and drove away, ready to embrace my new life. The weight of the past was finally gone, and for the first time in years, I felt completely free. I often reflect on a question that lingers in my mind. Was I too harsh by refusing Scott's apology? He grew up under Maria's control, and it's clear now that he was a victim of her manipulation too. Breaking free from toxic family patterns and generational trauma is no small task. Some might say that when someone shows genuine growth, they deserve a second chance. But in the end, I chose to focus on my peace and my own success over reconciliation. It wasn't an easy choice, but it felt like the right one for me. What would you have done in my position? Could you forgive someone who had enabled years of gaslighting and emotional pain, even if they finally realized the damage they caused? Or do some bridges, once burned, deserve to stay that way? It's a tough decision, one that many people face in their lives. I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to choose between forgiveness and protecting yourself? How did it turn out for you? Was it worth it to forgive, or was walking away the best thing you could have done for yourself? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. I think this is a conversation we all can learn from. For me, walking away wasn't about holding on to anger or resentment. It was about making a decision to prioritize my well-being. After everything I went through, I knew I had to set boundaries and move forward without looking back. That decision didn't come from a place of hate. It came from a place of self-respect. If my story resonates with you, consider giving this a like or subscribing for more real-life stories about standing up to toxic people and learning to choose yourself. Sometimes, the strongest thing we can do isn't fighting back or trying to fix the situation. Sometimes, the strongest thing is knowing when to walk away and never look back.